Hello, this is James Dolgaroff, aka JD, your instructor here at Valley College for Principles of Macroeconomics 200, Econ 200, Section 7.1. Now, you guys are finished with all of the assignments in Revell, which is great because, as it says here on the syllabus, as you look at the course syllabus in the course, I think I got it right here. Okay, yes. Econ 200, we scroll down, you see that, of course, Revell is most of your grade, right? The assignments in Revell, the chapter assignments, are 90% of your grade. So if you take 0.9 times your percentage, your cumulative percentage at Revell, that can give you some idea. Like if you have 100% times 0.9, you've got, wow, you've got 90%. And so you have an A, right? Whereas if you have, say, let's see, 90 times 0.9, you've got 81. And so you need the extra 10% to get your A. You need this discussion board. It gives you 10%. And all you have to do to get 100%, right, that extra 10% will be to just do a good job on the economics in the news discussions, right? Now, we did have a discussion board that I'm going to use that as extra credit simply because I will admit here that as we go in here, let me show you, you can see that basically the way this happened was, if I scroll down here, I had put it on as a discussion board that it's a series of replies. And I didn't make that a graded discussion. It says 100 points. So here's what I'm going to do with that. If you did it, I'm going to give you extra credit for doing that. Okay. So basically, if you, and it's sort of really hard to figure out which discussion board am I supposed to do, because I noticed that having not used the discussion board that much, I made this somehow into two assignments. So some people did this one and some people did this one. It's very confusing. And so I am going to, if you did this, I'm going to bump your grade by 3 percentage points. And so that would be good enough so that, for example, if you had like a B plus, about 88%, if you did this assignment, right, I'll just go ahead and bump you 3%, right? Consider it to be a 3 percentage point bump for extra credit. So in other words, I'm thinking of it like this. For people who have a B plus, 88% would be a B plus. This 3% would put you over the line for an A minus. So I'm going to reward you in terms of percentages at the end. I don't think anyone will object to that, right? Okay, so, but then economics in the news discussions come here at the end. Now, this one I did set up as a graded assignment. If you look in your grade book, I'm going to basically tell you whether or not you got credit for this by giving you you'll see there's, for a discussion board due April 28th, it will say 100 points, just so you know, but it's not going to be included in this 10% deal. Okay, for that, I'll just tack on 3% if you were confused. What do I do? Do either one of these. I think that if you did either one of these, I figure if you clicked into this one and did it, or clicked into this one and did it, I gotcha. Okay, and you can see that's just it. You'll see in the grade book
whether or not you got those points, and it will be just to avoid confusion, it will say 100 points if you got full credit, right? And so if you didn't do a good job, then it will be, like if you got 90, it'll be 90% of that 3% at the end. I know that sounds confusing, but I'm going to use this to really help you. But here at the end, I wanted to get into something that's, what's going on with macroeconomics in the news. Well, of course, the biggest deal in really decades in terms of macroeconomic policy, other than, the stimulus package, which was done under the Obama administration, the most recent and largest corporate tax cut we've ever seen in the history of the United States really was done. I'm talking about the corporate tax cut was the largest that we've seen. It was the Trump tax cut. Now, if you go in here to the assignment, I'm just going to give you a brief rubric in this screencast. Okay, so you'll notice that this is the economics in the news discussion that I said would be 10% of your grade. So you really want to pay attention, and you really want to convince me that you've read these articles. You can't see what someone else has posted until you post. And you can reply to other students, but it's not required. And if you do so respectfully. Now, if for some reason your original posting is deficient, I might actually look at your reply to add points to your overall score. But if your original posting is solid, I'm just going to go ahead and give you the full credit, right? And again, but what you have to do is address these questions. And obviously, you'll want to watch the video on the impact specifically of the corporate tax cut. But, the Trump tax cut involves a tax cut for corporations, businesses, and a tax cut for households, which was the income tax cut. And those both together were the Tax Cut and Jobs Act that the Trump administration enacted over a year ago. And by now, this report summarizes what we see already, and we can fairly well see what going forward, what the impacts of that tax cut are. So then question one, you watch this video, then you read this report. It's not that long. While there is a positive stimulus to overall economy from the Trump corporate tax cuts, do most of these increases in income go to workers or investors who own the business firms in America? And of course, you have to watch the video to see what it's gone as the predictions by the Office of Management and Budget, the president's own scoring agency, did on this, right? And that's what this is about. And the Congressional Budget Office does this work for the president. So this is a pretty solid analysis of what's going on. The second one is a Brookings Institution report. Question 2 looks at more broadly at the overall tax cut, not just to corporations, but also to individuals when they pay their income tax this year. While there are positive impacts for households in the short run, read the report. What does the Brookings report assert are the longer term impacts on the overall economy, especially in terms of, we were told that the tax cut would generate so much of an increase in economic growth and jobs that even though we cut tax rates, that there would be so many more people working and so much more income generated in the economy that the amount that we collect in tax revenues would be revenue neutral. That is to say, when they rolled out this piece of legislation, the Trump Tax Cut and Jobs Act, that the assertion was that there would be no decrease in tax collections because even though we cut the tax rates, the amount of income and the number of people working would be enough to make up for the cut in the tax rate. We collect more revenue because even though the rate was lower, we'd be taxing more people and more income overall, so that we would collect about the same amount of taxes with a lower tax rate. And wow, wouldn't that be great? But if you look at the summary of the overall impacts of the Trump tax cut, the question here is, what did it do to the federal government deficit? Did it make it larger, or did the economy grow so much that it made it smaller? You have to read to give me the answer, of course. And then having digested both of these pieces of of media on the tax cut, on the impacts of the tax cut, how do you feel about the impact of the tax cut overall? And therefore, do you support it? Looking back, state why or why not. Again, convincing me with information that you've gleaned either from these two articles, or maybe just generally you could Google this, right, and see what you can find as well, and include that if you want to in this statement for question 3. This is more, having looked over all this stuff, how do you feel about this tax cut? Obviously, there's been some positive stimulus in the short run, but going forward, the Brookings report is looking at the impact overall in terms of, has it given us a big bump in growth? Can it be sustained? And what's the impact on the federal deficit, which is, if we're spending money and we're not collecting enough in taxes to cover those expenditures, then we increase the federal government deficit, and that may not be a good deal going forward if we look at it long term. It's sort of like, if you eat some candy, it might give you a nice short-term boost, but later on, what's the impact? That's a question, of course, and going forward, this is sort of an opinion thing, right? I'm not going to say, if you should be in favor or against, but that's what I'm asking you. This is more, I'm just curious as to how you feel with question 3. So thank you for paying attention to this. And again, it is 10% of your grade, and it will be due. The last day of class before finals is, let me see, I think it's May the 17th or something like that, right? Let's see, it is May the 17th is the Friday, the first day of final exams. And so, that's when I'm definitely going to wrap things up. That's the first day of finals, I think, if you're in an English class, or I know my Fridays only class has their exam then. So anyway, May the 17th is the due date. Please try to get done before then. You have plenty of time, actually. You have like 2-3 weeks to get this done. But again, do a good job, read the report, and make sure that you put your best foot forward, in terms of a rubric, right? I would like to see, maybe 2 paragraphs on this first one, because you watched the whole video. You got to summarize it, and then what are the impacts, right? And then 2 good paragraphs. A paragraph is 4 or 5 sentences, right? Okay, a paragraph here is 4 or 5 sentences, and then I'm really looking at this as your final paper, so to speak, right? So don't think of it as, well, I'm just going to give you 1 line for question 1, 1 line for question 2, and 1 line for question 3, because then you'll be very upset when you have an 85% cumulative, and then you only get 4% of the 40%, 40 points out of 100 on the, if you give me one sentence, then I'll grade it like that, right? I'm saying there's a lot in this video. And so when you're answering the question, what is the impact, right? Do most of the increases in income go to workers or investors? Convince me that you looked at the detail that's in this video, right? Take some notes before you watch these, and take some notes as you read this report. Are there things that they say about economic growth, about the impact on workers, about the impact on the deficit, and who's going to ultimately have to pay if there are larger deficits going forward in the long term, right? Okay, so don't neglect those impacts. I think there are like 3 distinct impacts that the Brookings report looks at. I'm not going to tell you what they are. You're going to do the research and you're going to tell me, right? And as long as you give me, again, 2 paragraphs on question 1, 2 paragraphs on question 2, and then maybe 1 paragraph letting me know how you feel about the actual overall impact. And again, you might say, hey, I like the short term, I got a tax cut, but going forward, yeah, I like it too. Or, well, there's some things that they pointed out in this report that I do, okay, that's just the cost of getting a bump right now. Or I may, who cares about the future? We'll deal with that in the future. I mean, there's several ways you can go here, right? And there's no right answer to, do you support it? Do you think it was a good idea? Yeah, but then yes or no, tell me why or why not, reflecting on some of the things that again, doesn't hurt if you want to Google a little bit of this for question 3, but questions 1 and 2, I'm asking you to reflect on what these item 1 and item 2 pieces of information. Okay, so good luck, you guys. I think, again, if you're looking at your overall composite at Revell, that is 90% of your grade. And again, if you're in the 80s somewhere, just do a good job on this this economics in the news assignment. You've got 3 weeks, so don't rush it. I figure, hey, it might take you a week to figure out that there's an economics in the news discussion, even though it's in the syllabus, right? Here it is. And again, with regard to that first one that we did, since I rolled it out in a confusing manner, I'm going to use that for extra credit, right? So even though you've got, 93% at the end of all the points, I'm going to give you a 3% bump, just a gift from me to you. If you've got 89%, it's going to give you a 3% bump and put you over the line. But then again, there's a lot of weight on this last assignment, right? Economics in the news, the effect of a Trump tax cut. This is the last piece of the course. It's due, right, on May the 17th. I think I said the 17th, right? And I'll let you know that as we come closer. I'll put that due date on the assignment. Thank you very much. And I hope you're having a good semester. We are lightening up here at the end, of course, so that you can do better in your other classes. This is JD signing off.